Ever wonder how some financial services and fintech leaders learned about money when they were kids? Well, we've asked them 4 important questions to get their answers, and you definitely will want to hear them. Join me today as we hear from Mary Beth Strojohann, co-CEO of Abacus Wealth Partners. Hey everyone, Mac Gardner here, author of Motivate Your Money and the global best-selling children's book, The 4 Money Bears. I am joined today by the one, the only, Mary Beth Strojohann. Mary Beth, who is the co-CEO of Abacus Wealth Partners. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mac.
So, Mary Beth, for the folks who don't know who you are, please take a few minutes to share you, your journey, your role, and the amazing firm that you lead.
Yeah, I am co-CEO of Abacus Wealth Partners. We are a values-oriented, progressive-leaning firm. We align people's money with their values. And so I became co-CEO about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I was chief marketing officer, and I had my own firm prior to that. So I used to run my own independent RIA, ran that for 6.5 years, was recruited by Abacus, and came here.
Here we are.
20 years in the industry. Here I am. I'm
doing amazing
2 decades into my career. So
awesome. Well, Mary Beth, what we're doing here with this interview series is, as you may know, you've been a supporter of our Teach Kids Money mission for many, many years. We are finally rolling out the 4 Money Bears Berryville. It's going to be an awesome, fun game. It's going to help parents with young kids and some adults start the conversation, really learn about entrepreneurship, money management. And so what we're doing is we're asking industry leaders 4 important questions that really deal with how they got really connected with money in their early engagement with this. So you ready for question 1?
Ready.
Here we go. Mary Beth, what was your earliest memory of money or financial education?
Oh my goodness. My earliest money memory is not like a great one, but I will say it was around prioritization in terms of, do you pay for essentials first, in terms of you paying for housing, utilities, necessities before you pay for things like clothes, dining out, restaurants. And so I think that education early on was around, okay, like how do you prioritize and where do you focus on when you only have a limited amount of resources?
And was that based upon maybe a specific memory you had as a child or a connection with seeing money? I love hearing those stories. Anything with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be candid. One of the first conversations I walked in, I think I was in I had some early memories, I guess, before this, but the one that is seared there, I remember coming home from school one day, walking into the house, and my parents were fighting upstairs about
money.
About money. They were fighting about, so they walked in, I could hear the mortgage hadn't been paid, but other things had been paid for. And so there was conversations around, okay, well, why hadn't the mortgage been paid? And other, new shoes were purchased for school from Payless. And
yes.
So why were those new shoes purchased for school? So walking into that though, I was like, okay, like this is where other things, I had never really paid much attention, but that fight that I was downstairs, they were upstairs, that I overheard.
It sticks, doesn't it?
It was there. It's still there. So
and it shapes our engagement, interaction with money as we become adults and we start thinking about money, which leads us into our second question. What did money represent in your household growing up, Mary Beth?
I say money represented definitely almost put on like this silver platter. Money was power. Freedom, there was status. I think status. Money was status, I think, is what it really represented. Lots of open conversations. I grew up like Italian Catholic. Everybody wants to know how much you paid for everything at any point in time. And like you're kind of awarded if you got a steal. Like you never want to give them the actual price. You always want to say you got it for less than you actually got it.
Of course.
Then you look better. But I'd say I think money was a status symbol. So it was definitely sought after, very interested in, and it was something that was idolized in some ways.
So you said a couple things there that resonate with me. You said open conversation, which is typically not the case when we ask people about money growing up in their home. But you said it was open. Unpack that a little bit for us.
Open and there's this curiosity and almost abrasive nosiness in terms of like that kind of openness of just no filter of hey, how much did you pay for this? How much, that sort of stuff.
Interesting.
But there was also, that was in terms of spending, but I would say in terms of a closed offness in terms of like money. There was like money shame too, in terms of debt, in terms of, not being able to keep up with the Joneses in some ways. So that was kind of kept under the wraps in some ways. I could see through conversations or comments that were made from the adults in my life, that we had less than. I knew we had less than. I grew up in a family that struggled financially. So I knew we had less than, and I knew just from comments about what other people had that there was like some sort of jealousy that was there. And so that's where I knew like the status was kind of placed on it. But also again, like the dynamic I grew up in, 20 Italians and together on Saturday and Sundays, always wanting to know, like, what'd you pay for that thing?
That's very interesting, fascinating. I'm always fascinated by the cultural aspects of money, the connections, the discussions, the reverence. Yeah. And that's a very fascinating take. I'm glad you shared. I still to this
day look for coupon codes before I buy something online. Like I'm like, well, before I hit submit, I might as well see.
Yeah, I've got to make sure you're getting the best deal. And it's amazing how that again is hardwired into us as we become adults. So now, I'm a parent of 3 awesome offspring. You're a parent as well, Mary Beth?
Two
offspring yourself. This is going to lead us into the third question here. How do you think we should teach kids about money?
It's a very open-ended question. And so I think I had this great experience just a few weeks ago. So my daughter's in a Girl Scout troop, and I was responsible for teaching her Girl Scout troop about financial literacy was the theme for January. So I had to teach 4th through 6th graders about money. And that is a group that is, of girls who were just not interested. But what I did was I actually did like a like this or that. And so I found like getting on their level, I think this is what it gets to, is getting on their level. I went online and I found like the Stanley Cups. I found like a Stanley Cup, and then I found a knockoff, like Stanley, a knockoff of like, okay, how much is this one and how much is this one? And like, or the Crocs, like how much are these Crocs versus like these garden clogs from Amazon. So I had pictures on this like giant Post-it notes. I had them guessing prices and kind of going around wheeling and dealing, and they're all yelling out. And then I also gave them, okay, they had an imaginary $100, and here's like what everything cost. And I gave them some other things, and they had to figure out and prioritize for their interests, like what they would spend their money on and why. And so I think the most important thing when it comes to how we should teach our kids about money is to try to get down on their level.
Yep.
I think so often, even as a planner, I'm trying to teach my daughter about like, here's what a stock is, and here's how you earn interest. In
qualified versus non-qualified dollars.
Yeah, and she's like, she doesn't care, she can explain savings and interests. But when I translated it into their desires and the things they want to buy and their interests, all of the girls came to life, and the conversation really started flowing. So I think when we are getting down to it, making sure we're meeting kids on their level in some way, as opposed to really trying to bring them into the adult world maybe a little sooner than will really click for them. Couldn't
agree with that thought flow more. Meeting young people, especially when you're engaging young people, if it's not fun, if it's not entertaining, if it's not gamified, if it's not meeting them at their level as to what they can relate with, it's just not going to work, which is why we're really excited with this Berryville game to really bring it out and see. We're striving to make the game fun first. We do not want this thing to smell like financial literacy in any way, shape, or form. We just want people, young and old, to be like, this is such a cool, cozy, game, a merchant sim, and I'm making pies and I'm making shakes and well, am I learning about what interest and am I learning what's going on here? So I totally agree. You got to meet him there. All right, ready for question number 4?
Ready.
All right. Share the best advice you've ever been given when it comes to money, Mary Beth.
I think the best advice I've ever been given, not like explicitly, but I think, and I share this often, is that nobody will look out for you like you look out for you. And so that means, in terms of like you are responsible for your own financial future. So your own savings, your own income, if you're at a job and you're trying to get more money and it's not happening, okay, well then you're in control there. Do you leave that job? Like, do you need to get, like, what do you need to do to create change, to move yourself forward? And so I say that nobody will look out for you like you look out for you is some of the best advice that I've received.
When I hear that, I think about the richest man in Babylon. I think about saving 10% of every dollar you've ever earned. You have to pay you first. And until you do that, you cannot reach other levels. You cannot, in order to invest, you got to be able to save first. There's levels to this game, as they say.
And there's nobody coming to rescue you. I think that so often so we want to be rescued, and there's a lot of systemic issues as well. But I think, trying to trying to take ownership for what you can take ownership for, and responsibility for yourself is it's intimidating, but you can do it.
You can. Mary Beth, thank you so much. As we wrap up the interview, anything you want to share with us to just say, hey, you know what, this is something that's really passionate and you really care about?
No, I am really passionate about just paying it forward, right? So if you are, if you excel somewhere in your life, if you're doing great at something, make sure that you're reaching a hand out and pulling up people behind you. I think that's the most important thing.
Amen.
And buy the game, use the game, get the game.
Thank you. And I think as soon as it's out, you're going to get your code, get you and your whole firm to have fun and give us some feedback, and we're going to appreciate that. As I always say, Mary Beth, the journey continues. Thank you so much for the time today.
Thanks, Mac.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you'll join us for our next engaging episode. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and visit www.the4moneybears.com.